Hello, and welcome to Jolineknitsalot. This is my show about knitting and crafting and the things I get up to here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. How are you doing? It is cold here and snowy. We've just been not locked inside, but we have been spending a lot of time inside just because it really is that cold outside. My poor dog's getting a little bit stir crazy. He would love to be spending more time outside, but it's just not safe for him given the weather, even if we do bundle him up, and we do. So I've been knitting a lot, and not just to keep myself warm, but to distract myself from some of the news in the world. It's been a rough couple of weeks, and I hope that wherever you are, I hope you're doing okay. And I hope that you find comfort in your crafting the way that I do. I have managed to finish a couple things and start a couple things. So why don't we just dive right in? Actually, in the last couple of weeks, I've had a chance to get together with some friends at a not super local brewery, but not too far away either. Some girls from my knitting group got together last weekend at a local brewery that was hosting a crafts and drafts afternoon on a Sunday afternoon. How fun. So we just grabbed a table, ordered some beer and some food if we wanted, and just hung around and crafted. It was a great space in that there was lots of natural light. It was a Sunday afternoon, so it was light outside. And if you're looking for a place to craft and draft, I would recommend the Leduc Brewing Company, which is in Leduc, Alberta. It's about a half an hour from where I live, just outside the city of Edmonton. But it was a great excuse to sort of get out and do something, get together with my crafting friends in a place that we don't normally get together. So that was really fun. I also have a couple of crafty things coming up in the next couple of weeks. One is just a knit night, which is always fun and I always look forward to. But another one is local in Edmonton, Crafternoon movie. So the movie theater used to be called the Garneau, now it's called Metro Cinema, is hosting Bridget Jones' Diary, which is a great movie, a classic. And we will be crafting in the afternoon. The movie starts at 3:30 and the lights will be, they're not all the way up, but they're not all the way down either. They're kind of in the middle. So there's enough light for you to work on something not too fussy. So I'll probably just be taking some plain knitting and watch a movie and eat some movie popcorn and get together with your friends. So I'll be there. And if you're there, come and say hi. I look forward to spending some time in the afternoon, crafting, watching a movie, and eating delicious movie popcorn. The last time we went, we watched Josie and the Pussycats, which is not a movie I think I would seek out, but it was fun to get together with friends, and it was a good afternoon nonetheless, even if the movie wasn't necessarily my speed. So that's what I've got coming up, but in the meantime, I'll show you what I have finished. Now, if you recall, a good friend of mine has compiled a 3-month sock club just for me. So every month I've been getting a pattern in my Ravelry inbox and some yarn magically shows up at my door and I get to knit a pair of socks. So this is the first pair of socks. It started for my birthday, which was in January. So the first pair of socks was the Pressed Flowers socks. Sorry, I just realized there's a lot of pattern going on the screen right now. Why don't I tell you what I'm wearing first before we get into those socks? I am wearing today my Spark cardigan. Let me just get up and show you. It looks like this. This is a pattern by Andrew Mowry, and part of the reason I'm wearing it today is because it was steeked. And that is going to be relevant in a little bit. But this is the Spark cardigan. It's a pattern by Andrew Mowry. I knit it using Harrisville Nightshades, which is this very deep blue color. It's a really lovely yarn. I love the way it feels and the way it knits. And then my contrast color is some Dyed in the Wool by Spin Cycle. It's their sport weight yarn, and this is the color called Castle. So that's what I'm wearing. And this is what I finished. Ooh, pattern on pattern. So this sweater is stranded colorwork, and this pair of socks is mosaic knitting. The difference is stranded colorwork, you hold both yarns at the same time, and on each row of knitting or round of knitting, you are using both colors at the same time. In mosaic knitting, you're only using one color at a time and you're slipping the stitches for the other color. So you're only ever juggling one yarn at a time. And I think it's a good introduction to color work because it gives you a sense of reading the chart and also working the color work, but you're only needing to worry about one yarn at a time. So as I said, this pattern was a gift from a friend, and it just magically showed up in my inbox. It's the Pressed Flowers socks, and there's a whole series of pressed flowers. I think it started with a shawl. There's a shawl, a cowl, a hat, some socks, a pullover, a vest, a cardigan, and I just saw a pattern for some mittens. So if you like this pattern, there is going to be something for you. It is written by Savory Knitting, and I found it pleasant enough to knit, but the problem, I think, not for me, was it a problem? Not really a problem, but as I was knitting it, mosaic knitting does take a while because essentially every row you're having to knit twice. Like you knit it once with one color and then you knit it again with the other color, sort of. And so it did feel like progress was slow. Having said that, though, the pattern was easy to remember and easy to get into. You do this little bit of a cuff pattern where the flowers are more condensed, and then as you get into the leg and the foot, they become more spaced out, and so more little blips. The texture of this sock makes it quite gushy almost. I don't know, is gushy a word? I don't know. There's probably better words for it. But as you can see, these little blips have, they're knit on the first pass and purled on the second pass. Same with the center of the little flowers. And that gives it the texture of the sock more depth and more sort of squish. The pattern asks you to just put in some waste yarn when you get to the heel and then keep going, but I chose to ignore that, as is my prerogative as a knitter. And I knit a butterfly heel, again, with the butterfly heel. This is a heel, it's not a short row heel, but it is a heel that you can just insert into a pair of socks, and it doesn't affect the patterning of the sock, which is partly why I like it so much. So you can see I just knit, when I got to this point in the pattern, I just stopped with the contrast color, knit my heel, my butterfly heel, and then kept going with the pattern. So then picked up the stitches and kept going. The reason I like to do this is just, you don't have to bother with picking up stitches at the end. It was just a really nice sort of pause in the knitting, I guess. I could stop with the patterning, I could knit myself a little heel and then keep going. So that really worked well for me, but again, I find that most knitters have heels or toes or cuffs, even their preferred method of knitting socks. And so if this is a type of heel that you'd like to try, I'd say go for it. It was really, really easy to just stick in and then keep knitting. So that's what I did. I used probably about half a skein of the purple, and I used maybe a quarter skein of the sort of bluey green watercolory kind of color. And they're really great. Like I said, they do have some squish. I think they will be quite warm. As with stranded color work, the inside of your mosaic knitting always has a little bit of the other color in the background, and that's because when you're not using when the pattern isn't calling for that color to be used, you're slipping stitches and that yarn is being held in the back. And so in a lot of ways, the fabric is similar to stranded color work in the sense that it's got these little strands, for lack of a better word, in the background. So these are my pressed flower socks. They're the first of my curated socks for my birthday. And just yesterday, I noticed a new pattern in my inbox in Ravelry, and I have it on good authority that the yarn is on its way. So if you're interested in knitting this little knit along with me. The next pattern that I'm going to be knitting are the Mondim socks that look like this, here, here, or here. And they are a pattern by Andrea Mowry. I have it on good authority that some yarn is going to be coming to me, but you probably have something in your stash that would work really nicely for this pair of socks if you're interested in knitting along with me. The next time we get together, I will show you my yarn, and I may have cast on already, so I'll let you know. But you'll see next time how I'm making out. I have one other thing that I've completed in the last couple of weeks, and this is actually embroidery. Embroidery is not something I do a lot. And that being said, I do enjoy it, so I think I need to sort of delve into it a little bit more. But this is actually not for me, it's for someone else, and it's going to be mailed very soon to that special person. But I did a little embroidery on this little canvas bag. Now, my inspiration for this bag itself was my Woolens and Nosh advent calendar that I got this year. When I received my Woolens and Nosh advent calendar, there was a bag almost exactly this size. It had a little decal on it for Woolens and Nosh, and inside the bag there's this little snap were 2 balls for my advent calendar. And so I couldn't see what was coming out. I was just knitting. And I thought, what a great idea. That's so useful. And the size itself turned out to be really great for a sock project. So I decided that I would get a couple bags and maybe give them as gifts, but I wanted to decorate them. And I had seen at my local yarn shop, and I've seen them around at other places, but these are some stickers that you can stick right to a fabric. In this case, it's a canvas. And it gives you the embroidery pattern. So then you just stitch through the sticker and the fabric. And once you're all done, it dissolves. Sorry, I have a bit of a cold and I'm trying to not let that affect me too much. But what you do is you stick the sticker on there, which I did. And then I did use a embroidery hoop to keep it nice and taut, but I just used one that I had. I did all of this embroidery just following the outlines of the stickers. And I didn't use very interesting stitches because I'm not a very experienced embroiderist, stitcher. So I don't know if you can see on here. Let's see if we can zoom. Oh, let's zoom to the camera. This is not going well. So I just did some basic satin stitch on these leaves, and I used thread that I had. I didn't run out and purchase some. In fact, I had leftovers, as I often do, from any number of different stitcheries that I've already done, and I just keep them in my cupboard. And I pulled out a whole kit, and I knew they went together because they came together, and the picture that I finished is right up there. So I had lots of the threads left over, and I used them. So I used 2 different colored greens on the leaves, and that's just satin stitch. The flowers, I also just used satin stitch with French knots in the center. And there's some little buds that are also French knots. And then this is just a running stitch for the stems. There's nothing fancy. I did have a look at a couple of websites, and you can find instructions for embroidery stitches all over the place. I referred to a book that I purchased. It was put out by Lina magazine called Embroider, I believe. I'll put a picture of it here, or here. And I did find it useful. It's mostly meant for if you were embroidering on knitting, which I could see myself doing, but embroidery on knitting would have to be a bit of a larger scale because the knit stitches are a little less stable than this canvas that I have. So I used the book mostly to sort of help guide me in terms of what stitches I would use for the leaves or for the flowers or that sort of thing. And also there were instructions on how to do all of the stitches, which I kind of knew, but it was nice to just be reminded before I jumped right in. So this is the little bag that I've made. And like I said, it is a gift and it will be leaving here probably later today. I used the floral embroidery pack, and this is by Knitted Bliss. Knitted Bliss is a Canadian company. She creates embroidery kits as well as these little stickers. And this one has 10 stickers, 2 of each of these patterns that you can see on the back. So I used this one, but I think they're all pretty, and I think I would try them on different things. This Knitted Bliss also offers classes on how to do embroidery on knitting, and I believe she has some kits for that as well. So if embroidery on things is interesting to you, I would check out the Knitted Bliss website, and I will link to that in the show notes below. I do have another one of these little bags. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. For right now, it's just sitting in the stash, waiting for the right moment. But I think I could see myself doing another little embroidery on that as well. And that's all the things that I've finished in the last couple weeks. Now I have been working on some other bigger projects that I thought I'd share with you. I'll just share with you my progress. This is my Seaglass cardigan. Now I know I've talked to you about this before, and I am going to be putting together a video just on some of the things that, some of the little tips and tricks, I guess, that I have found to be helpful while I'm working on this project. Now the Seaglass cardigan is, again, it's a series of different patterns. There's a pullover, a t-shirt, a hat. I'm pretty sure there's a crochet version as well, but I'm doing the cardigan. And the cardigan includes instructions on how to weave in the ends on the insides so that you don't have to steek it. But for me, I want to steek it. Partly because I just think it's going to be easier to knit if I steek the whole thing and then cut it up. So let me show you how I'm making out. So here's the top of my sweater. This is knit top down, so this is my cast on edge. And when I cast on the number of stitches for the front, the shoulder, the back, which looks really wide here, but I will explain that in a moment, the next sleeve, and then the other front. And then I cast on 5 extra stitches, and these 5 stitches here are my steek. So I'm knitting 5 extra stitches, and this is where my color change happens. So you'll see on the inside of my knitting, that's where all of my tails are, and I'm not weaving them in because I'm going to be cutting them out. So for right now, it's just a hairy mess on the inside down the center of my steek. And every round, I am carrying my main color, which is this. It's called white pepper in English. And this is de Nature Ulysse, which is a French yarn. I cannot get over how fabulous this yarn is. And if there are any local to me yarn stores that want to carry this yarn, I would love you forever. And I would be in your shop all the time. This is my favorite yarn. I love it. It is amazing to knit just stockinette. It is amazing for color work. It creates a really soft fabric, and it plays well with other yarns. As you can see, there's a couple of other colors in here of the de Nature, but most of the yarns in this sweater are leftovers from various projects, most notably probably some stripe sweaters that I knit. Stripe is I'll pop a picture here, is a pattern, again, by Andrea Mowry, where you use lots of different colors and wider stripes. And for those sweaters, I used some Farmer's Daughter fiber in what was the name of that yarn? I'm going to put it right here. Again, also a very lovely non-superwash yarn that is soft and kind of bouncy and really makes lovely color work. So all of the colors in this sweater are mostly non-superwash, mostly fingering weight. Pardon me, sport weight, although some of them are fingering weight. And it's just been playing really nicely with this woolly wool of the de Nature Ulysse. So I've been knitting down And I think maybe the last time I saw you, I was about to start the sleeve. So as you can see, I have knit this sleeve and I knit this sleeve. Now, as I told you just now, knitting the steek means that I can cut the yarns at either end and just leave a hairy mess on the inside for my steek, because all of these little yarn ends are going to be cut out. They're going to be gone. So I don't even need to do anything with them. I will be doing a crochet reinforcement that will catch the ends and secure them without having to worry about finishing off the ends. So all of this is fine. But I couldn't do this in my sleeves because I'm not steeking the sleeves. The sleeves are what they are. They're just tubes, you know, much like these. And so I needed to do a different kind of yarn management. So for the sleeves, let me just pull one inside out for you. The sleeves were a little bit slower for me to knit, but I think there is a big payout. I decided to use the technique suggested in the pattern where you pick up your next yarn. So as I was getting to the end of a round, I would pick up my new contrast color yarn and I would twist it around one of the working yarns. I decided to twist it around the contrast color. It just seemed to make sense to me. So I would twist it in, and then when I'd get to the end of the round, I would switch, and my old contrast color, which is now done, would be twisted around the new contrast color. So that sounds like a bit of a bother, and it was a little bit slow going for the first while, but it meant that I don't have to knit in or weave in any of the ends anymore. They're all done. So let me show you what that looks like. This is the inside of my sleeve, and like right down here you can see this is kind of where my yarns changed over. And so I would have some of these ends are all woven in from the beginning of the round, and some of them are all woven in at the end of the round. I'm not cutting any of these too close just yet. I'd like to block my project first before I trim any of these ends in. And I always like to do that. I find that if you block your project, it kind of sets the ends in. It gives them some memory, and they sort of get to a place where they want to stay where they were blocked in. So I'm not going to cut any of these ends until I have blocked it. And when I do trim them, I will be leaving a bit of an end. I'm not going to trim them too close. And part of that is because I don't want the end to work its way out. So if I leave a little bit of an end, kind of like these ones here, then the ends will stay where I've put them. And also there's a possibility that over time and wear, they will kind of felt in. And so those yarns really aren't going to want to go anywhere. Was that a pain in the butt to do for 2 whole sleeves? Yeah, kind of it was. But it was worth it to me because every round of this sleeve had 2 ends. It had the start and the end of whatever contrast color I was using. And so to work in this many ends would have been worse for me. So that's what I decided to do. I did that on both sleeves. And now that they're done, I can just go ahead and finish my body, which just means working my way down the sweater until it's a length that I like, and then I'm going to add the ribbing. So part of the reason why I wanted to wear this sweater today was to just show you what a cardigan can look like once it's been steeked. So this sweater was steeked, and I thought I'd show you what the inside of that looks like, just so that you can get a sense of what I'm aiming for with this sweater. So when I look at this sweater, it does look very pulled forward, right? This is the front, and these 2 little fronts are kind of odd shaped because all of the shaping is happening to create a V-neck, but those V's are being pulled together, and so it does look very odd shaped. But that's what happened with this sweater. So you can see here, it's quite narrow at the top, and then widens out, but it was steeked. So let me show you what the inside of this one looks like. Now the inside of this one isn't going to have as many yarn ends because I used a color changing yarn, so that was not an issue here. But I can show you that on the inside I did a crocheted steek. So there's a line of pink, hot pink crochet. I went for the contrast color approach. So that line of crochet stabilizes those knitted stitches, and it goes all the way from the very, very tippy top of my V-neck right there and goes all the way down to the bottom of my sweater, right down to the bottom. And then what I did with that, and that was again a 5-stitch steek, so there wasn't a lot of fabric there. And then I just used a little bit of a whip stitch or a blanket stitch, I'm not sure what. It's not beautiful, but it does tack down that little end, and you can see some of the ends do kind of work their way out, but the stitches haven't gone anywhere. Looks fine on the outside. So even though the little ends may work their way out a little bit, they're still quite secure. And that is what I'm aiming for with this sweater. The other reason I wore this sweater today, well, one of many reasons, it's very cozy. I think because of the double fabric, the stranded color work really makes a cozy sweater, but also I wanted to see how long this sweater is so that I could get a sense of how long I wanted to make this sweater. And I do that a lot with my knitting. I will have a look at something either I've made or I've purchased to see what measurements I get. So how wide is this sweater that I really like wearing? I can aim for that in my next hand knit sweater. Or how long is this, the body of this sweater that I enjoy knitting or wearing so much? I can aim for that length in my next knitting project. So what I'm going to be doing is measuring this sweater from the underarm to, I think, the top of the color work here to get a sense of how long I want to make that sweater. Now, if that one's a little bit longer than this one, that's probably fine, but I do like portions of this one on me, and so I'll be using this sweater as a template for that sweater. I have one last project that I've been working on, and it's the February socks for Summer Lee's Colorwork Cuff Club. And I, of course, went for the more complicated pattern. Summer Lee, for a lot of the patterns that she's come out with this monthly Colorwork Cuff Club have maybe a more challenging version, and for some of them there's a less challenging version. The less challenging version for February was just a simple pair of socks with some hearts around the edge, but I took the more complicated road. I dove into my stash of like little minis and leftovers, and I pulled out some yarns that I thought looked really nice together. This deep purple is from my pressed flower socks that I just finished, and then just I think that this pale one is a Knit Pick Stroll. The bright pink one is from Polka Dot Creek. This blue is a Volmiza from some socks that I knit a couple years ago. And so I've just been using tiny little odds and ends for the color work of these socks, and most of the socks for the Colorwork Cuff Club. The body of the sock for this pair, I chose a speckled pair, or a speckled yarn that I had in my stash. This yarn, again, is from Polka Dot Creek, and I thought that it kind of picked up the colors that I was using in the stranded color work. So it's got some pinks and some purples, and it just sort of seemed to be a good choice for these socks. Again, I think I will have, I'm not using very much of these colors at all, and I have probably just over half a skein, so over 200 yards or meters of this speckledy yarn, and I won't be using all that much because really it's only from here down that I'm using the speckled one. So I have completed the first sock. I haven't blocked it yet, but just sitting on the sock blocker, I think that my tension is pretty good. I think that the one thing that I have done that has really helped my gauge on knitting colorwork socks is using a 9-inch needle, and that was a recommendation by Summer Lee. And I think that it really helps keep my strands and my stitches stretched around a relatively small circumference, but it also helps keep my knit stitches very even. So this is sock 1, and sock 2 looks like this. So I've just finished the hearts, and I'll be moving on to the rest of the pattern. There are a lot of ends to weave in. That's the thing with color work. You just have to be committed to weaving in the ends. But the nice thing about color work is there's lots of places to weave those ends in. I just use the strands on the back of my knitting. When I'm knitting stockinette, I tend to use duplicate stitch, so I'll follow or trace a stitch to hide my ends. But when I'm weaving in the ends for stranded color work, I'll just go and use the strands that are in the back of the work to help give me a place to weave in my ends. So I'm I'm probably a little over halfway done the color work chart. And then it'll be smooth sailing once I get back to that speckled yarn again. I do have one project that I'd like to get started on again, and that was sort of inspired by the embroidery I did earlier this week. This was a gift that I got at Christmas from my daughter. It's called Tea Party. I'm sorry if this is a little loud. But this is an embroidery kit by a local to me maker called Naked and Frayed. She does a lot of kits that sort of showcase local landmarks. So in fact, the movie theater that I'm going to be going to for the crafternoon, you could do an embroidery of that movie theater, which is kind of fun. There's various pubs. There is a sort of a striking new bridge that we got in the city in the last probably 10, 15 years. There's the Moutart Conservatory, which are a series of, I think, 4 pyramids that are made of glass, and they house different horticultural demonstrations or sort of environments. And I know that every year or 2, they have a corpse flower that blooms there, so people flock down to see the corpse flower. If you don't know what a corpse flower is, it's something that looks like this and smells like rotten meat. So that's a no for me, but if it's something that interests you, you could go to the Moutart Conservatory and check that out. This is what the kit looks like. Ooh, a lot of glare. So there is a little needle in there, but it's all stamped and ready to go. It's even arranged on the little hoop all ready for me with full skeins of embroidery floss, so I'll have lots left over. So I think that this is something that I'll get started with maybe in the next couple of weeks. Again, it's by Naked and Frayed. It has a pattern and full embroidery kit included, and I'm sure that there are some instructions as well. So I look forward to getting that started in the next little while. Embroidery does seem to go pretty quickly, partly I think because you don't have to look at a pattern. You can just sort of not work by feel, but there is sort of a more intuitive nature to it. So I look forward to getting that started. Given the fact that I woke up with a cold yesterday, and I'm doing my best not to sniffle or sneeze too much on the podcast. But yesterday I drank a whole pot of tea. And by tea, I just mean like an herbal tea, which is basically warm juice. But there's been a lot of tea consumption here lately. So it seems appropriate that I should do a tea party. And that is all of the projects that I have on my needles right now. I'm looking forward to starting my next pair of socks in my curated collection. And as I said, it's the Mondim socks by Andrew Maurer. If you want to knit along with me, I'll be finding out what my yarn is in the next couple of weeks. And on the next episode, I'll show you the yarn and if I've made any progress. I'm also looking forward to getting through the color work of my Seaglass sweater. It's been fun. It's been fun switching the colors and seeing how they play together and the stripes, but I'm ready to get onto some just plain knitting. So far the knitting of this sweater has been enjoyable. It's all knit one color work. So you knit one with the main color in my case, and one with a contrast color. So it's not a difficult color work to do, but I'm ready to start a different kind of knitting, which probably will mean knitting the ribbing at the very bottom, and I think a fairly substantial ribbing, and then picking up all of those stitches. It's going to be a lot of stitches to work the shawl color on this sweater. So this sweater still has a lot of work left in it, but I am kind of looking forward to getting to the point where the color work is behind me and I'm working more with just the single color in the yarn that I just adore, and seeing how this whole sweater kind of comes together. I hope in the next couple of weeks you find time to do things that you like, whether that's drinking tea and staying warm, or embroidery, knitting, crochet, whatever it is that you do. I hope that you look after yourself, that you're taking good care, and that whatever it is fills you up. I know in the next couple of weeks, I plan on knitting a lot. I will see you soon.